comprehensive modalities. When we think about this, you know, comprehensive is exactly what it means. And so we have to be thinking about each individual being as a complex unit that has their own unique issues, struggles, etc. So sure, we have this overarching umbrella of, you know, they're reaching for something outside of them to bring them peace, joy, comfort, relief, value, validity, worthiness, whatever that is, from people-pleasing codependency, which is a behavioral addiction, to heroin. And so we have to have these comprehensive modalities that actually see them as a unique being, and how they arrived where they are, and how they're experiencing this thing called living, and what their ultimate desire is as to how they desire to see themselves experiencing it. So we can't just go, you know, here's this little bubble we made or box we've made, and we've had some success to give us these, you know, scores and ranking, and think that that's going to be comprehensive for all. And then I get it. We all have our space, and I'm going to try not to get too heady here, right? Like I'm one of those crazy individuals who has highly educated themselves with, I don't know, whatever, 15 credentials after the name. So when we look at the different levels, right, from detox, residential, partial hospitalization, intensive, outpatient, to social supports of AA, NA, CODA, whatever they are, all of those levels have an important space. Some people need all of them. Some people only need one or two of them, whatever it is, but it's our job, well, it's my job anyway, to know what that journey needs to look like for a person who arrives at my door. So I've got to be thinking about all 14 categories of life. And when I say that, I mean, you know, so when I look at life balance for somebody or their life structure, I'm looking at 14 categories that I have to dive in and kind of figure out what they all mean to them, where they're lacking, where they need support, and then build a collaborative team. So that might mean, let's see, we're going to go detox here, get some stabilization for 30 days here. Then we're going to go here, here, and here. And so I think gone are the days where we say, go to a 30-day, 60-day, 90-day, depending upon where you live and what's still available. I'm in California. You don't see the 90-day treatment programs as often as you used to. Insurance just doesn't cover them anymore. And then you also see those areas where they, you know, make you start with those lower level of care before they'll even approve you. But anyway, so you have to.
Yeah, but so just real quick, so like fundamentally what you're saying is you sit here and you create a comprehensive plan for the individual rather than putting them in a box and saying you need to follow along with this specific program to make sure that you break free from addiction.
Right, because if 30 years of conditioned way of being, 30 days isn't going to correct. So when they leave that 30-day treatment, sure, they may be feeling great. They may think they're done, but they still have to go back to the same house, spouse, kids, bills, job, environment that they previously were incapable of functioning at a high level in. And then we go, okay, now what's next? And the general discharge plan, which is something that I speak about at addiction treatment conferences, is that, you know, we discharge to once a week therapy and AA, NA, whatever, which is great. We've got the therapeutic and we've got the social support, not to downgrade anything, right? Like, so but if we look at that, it's a social support. It's got a, you know, program and a journey that goes with it, but it's still social. And so there's the assertive continuum of care that is often not filled. It's a space that I created my program for, because it still has the psychological aspect to it. So it's the practical application of the psychological skill sets and tactics in each individual's life. So you got to teach them how to use it in their life. So you can't just not be present. You have to give them something that's going to show them what to do. Me, I had to learn how to open the refrigerator door, right? And not grab a
Yeah,
beer
absolutely.
or the Ben and Jerry's or whatever. Like just even that physical act, because I started drinking at 12, right? So here I am 43 and I got to learn how to open the refrigerator door. That's something that being at a treatment program or in some group meeting somewhere isn't going to help me learn.
Yeah.
I have to know what skills, what do I need to bring with me as I approach the refrigerator door. And I mean, that's just a very, surface
Basic,
level.
but something you say that you highlighted and something you shared with me offline when I was introducing myself to you is you have created so many touch points to support people so that they really they not only have like an innovative, customized approach to their wellness, but there are ways to tap in to that support all the time, every time, to make sure that they are able to be set up for success, which we need because we have moments of vulnerability in our recovery.
Well, and what I've seen in my, I don't know, 11 and a half years, right, is that we need a daily touch point that has purpose, it has intention, and has value for the individual.
Yeah.
So that means it may be, and you're kind of rolling almost into, our next little bullet, but, it might mean listening to a digestible lesson, if you will, on a psychological tactic or a method or whatever, right? Like just listening to a lesson, in the morning so that they can bring it with them into the day. It might mean, a group life skills, right? Like, so, a group on advanced emotional intelligence and some topic in there. It might mean doing, some logging and some self-observation. It might mean, having an actual, in my world, an actual coaching session on what's going on in the life. And so you have to have like these little daily touch points. It doesn't mean, as a practitioner, you have to be available all the time, but you have to give them something so that we're working in this continuum that it's right here, right now in this moment going forward. Sure, therapy is for cleaning up, the deep trauma, and it's got a purpose. And you got to have that on your team if that's an issue for you, but that takes longer to work. So you can't just sit still and wait for the trauma therapy to work. You've got to have something that has you learning how to cope and live effectively in a forward moving motion while this is happening.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And so that does tie into your technology driven solutions, which I'll touch upon. But I'm curious, I want to go back just a little bit. So you said you have 14 categories of living. So what are the 14 categories that you're assessing for an individual to then create this comprehensive, innovative treatment?
Okay, so I'm gonna do my best because I almost always memory, like I don't know what it is, and because I say it out loud, it almost always happens again. But I always leave out one, so please don't keep count. You'll get the idea, right?
Yeah, I feel you. I'm the same way. Again, we keep it real.
I don't pre-plan my conversations. I mean, I did so that you would have an idea of what I'm passionate about speaking about, but so everything you get from me is always organic right here, right now. So if you look at a complete wheel of life, you have spirituality, you have health, you have work, you have social, developmental, recreational, you have family, and you have life planning. Okay, so there's 8. Inside of health, you have 6 subcategories, right? Which is your physical, your emotional, your social, wow, your environmental, which is extremely critical, and most people don't look at their environmental health. And then there's, oh wow, there's two more, and I'm really tanking it today.
No, you're killing it.
But so you get it, right? Like, so there's
Yeah, yep.
different categories that go into health. So, and then life planning, which is, this is kind of like a bonus, right? Like life planning isn't just one layer. Life planning is, like my planning for my life now, right? Like my monthly budget, whatever, weekly budget, whatever, right? Like, so there's the now, but then there's also, you got to plan for death. You got to plan for retirement. You've got to plan, there's just life planning is an ongoing and multifaceted issue. And so when you are working with somebody, or you're asking somebody to give you, some support on life balance, and it's, your home work life balance, and maybe you toss in a little health and you think that's, your exercise or your blood labs being good, like you are really falling into what I consider the general population's way of living, which is highly surface. We whitewash and water down the true meanings and definitions of words. We overuse and whitewash diagnostic criteria. And I get it, right? They tell us in marketing, use a language that people can understand, but then they run with that. Even my own daughter said, like, gosh, I had so much anxiety when I left my son for school the first day, when it wasn't anxiety at all, because it's not like she was fearful. It was her first time ever leaving her kid, right? Like it was a totally different emotion, but we forget to use our vocabulary, and we don't spend the time to learn how to truly articulate with the right word, adjective, etc., to explain the emotional space that we're truly in that moment.
Yeah, I love that so much.
I'm geeking out now, sorry.
No, I love that you're geeking out. This is beautiful because I can geek out right with you. And something I really want to highlight for the people watching, environment. So critical, and you nail it, and we don't address it enough when it comes to addiction recovery. And when you look at the bulk of relapse, right? If you're going in from a purely energetic standpoint, now nerd out, right? We attract our energy. And if we go into this environment where there's still abuse, there's still addiction, there's still, guilt, shame, apathy, we're subject to falling back into those behaviors because it's what we're around all the time. So I love that you address that.
Okay, so I'm gonna go out on a wild side here, guys. So hopefully I don't offend anybody. But here's the deal, right? If you consistently surround yourself with, I don't know, white knuckling it, vulnerable, abstinent people, I'm trying here, right? That are, that don't have that life planning aspiration to become recovered.
Yep.
Right? Then you're energetically putting yourself in a vulnerable space. And I know this, right? Because I've been in and out of the rooms many times. I've had DUIs and I've had, all of the things, and I get it. And so if you're constantly in a space where they're in an external locus of control, and they're constantly, trying to, find something outside of them, the people, places, things that make up their life, right, to come up with their answers, and it's not internal. So if we're constantly sitting in this space of being in perpetual recovery, that's where we're going to be.
And you'll sit and suffer.
So 11 and a half years in, right? Like, and of course this happened for me a long time ago, but when I went into recovery, I went into recovery with the thought process of, I'm done. I'm ready to recover. So I no longer identify as a being in recovery. I don't identify as a sober being. It's just not part of my life. Yeah. And same with my my other recovery journeys, which are eating disorders, and sexual assault, domestic violence, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I have recovered from those things because it's what I set out to do. Now, that doesn't mean my clients do that. I have clients that are like, I want to be, an addict in recovery. Great. Great. Like this is your journey, and we need to be able, right, to show up as the person that they need you to be, right? And teach them what they need to be taught that is within your scope of practice. And I'm going to say that loud because there are so many folks out there providing service that are just so hungry to take anybody. And sure, most of us do it from the kindness of our heart and because we truly want to be of service, but we don't know what we're doing.
And the harm that happens with that is pervasive. I see it all
the whole reason I've opened the academy, right? So that we can number one, as practitioners, operate with a protective shield, because we are empathetic beings and we take on all that heavy weight of our clients' trauma and struggle, etc. And it poisons our personal life where, whatever, right? Like my system, I walk out my door, it doesn't matter how heavy the day it is, with a smile on my face and a skip in my step, because that's my personal life, right? Like what I do in here is completely different. Now, it was important to me to create that. Otherwise, I was going to fail at being an effective provider.
Yep.
So I've created the academy where all providers can have that level of emotional intelligence, advanced emotional intelligence, and personal excellence, but also so that I can, where I'm passionate, and credential folks, right, as recovery coach, as mental health coaches, as family recovery, people that are working with adolescents and young adults, right, like that level of recovery coaching level. And I do that through an accredited organization, but I do that because I'm passionate about who's out there providing what, and I teach very, very, very sternly the ethical space behind that we have of staying inside our scope of practice. And when it's outside, it doesn't mean you can't work with that person. It means, back to that comprehensive, it means build them a collaborative team that fills all the gaps.
Yes. Yep. And, the other thing I love, and I'm going to I'll be wild too, is we as service providers have a responsibility to do the work for ourselves every day, so that way we don't project, because that's what I see in the healing space too, is not only are we outside our scope of knowledge or understanding, but we project our own mess onto people because we're not doing the work ourselves. And so I love that you have that.
What you're saying right here is my next level kind of pet peeve, right? Which is, we go into service to be of service, and it's so heartfelt, and I love it. Absolutely love it. And I applaud
everybody. Yeah.
The issue is we don't educate ourselves on how to create a journey to take our clients on. Again, back to that, full approach. And because I've talked to so many coaches and they're like, I just show up for my client and we, we work on whatever it is they need there. And to some degree that is okay. But if we as the practitioner don't know where we're taking the client or how we're going to get the client from their point A to their point Z, then we're just kind of winging it. Yeah. We're winging it and right. So that's why I have, right, like the 7 different programs that I have, so that I can, mesh it all up, right, and I know the journey, and I'm teaching them things in a very specific, purposeful order, because as they build on each other, it gets them the result that they're looking for. Yep. In cognitive and emotional skills from a psychological perspective, blah, blah, blah. Right. It's also the reason why I open those programs up for other practitioners to be able to use in their practice without my involvement, so that they're getting evidence-based practices in these other programs. Yeah. Because it's that important to me. People are like, oh, you share your intellectual property. Absolutely, I do. Yep. Absolutely, I do. If you need a program, let's talk, right? Like, I want for you to have that high level of success. by giving, right? By giving you the opportunity to have access to a program that has been built on the back of psychology.
I love that. So let's talk about some of your credentialing because it ties into psychonutrition. So I want to make sure we talk about that because I think that is a really powerful point to touch upon before we leave.
Right. And we won't probably get to dive into it super far, but we live in a throw a pill at it society. And I mean, here to tell you firsthand, right? Like I've removed so many autoimmune diseases from my life just by leaning into psychonutrition and learning how to hear my body, but also as a studied, trained professional, right? On recovery nutrition, recovery fitness. Sorry guys,
Nope, you're good. Just keep going. We heard you.
So, right? I live in the country. So, but when we're looking at psychonutrition, right? It's an integrative approach that combines the principles of nutrition with psychological wellness.
Yes.
Right. So we have to address the mind body. So, people are, in recovery tend to very quickly go into a sugar addiction, food addiction, whatever. We've got to address that. And now we can't address it if we're not trained again, right? Like we want to bring in the right things. But also, there's a way to eat that will support for each person, that will calm anxiety, that will promote the body to actually produce more of the hormones versus just giving it synthetic versions. Case in point, melatonin.
Yep.
Quick to give that to people in recovery. Here's melatonin. It's a synthetic version of a naturally, occurring hormone in the body. Instead, there's more effective supplements that will actually activate. There are also supplements that will activate the gene that quiets the addiction, right? So if we know that there's supplementation that will activate the gene inside of us to quiet the addictive gene, why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't we lean into that?
Yeah.
Right? Instead of maybe a MAP program, or as the ultimate goal, right? Like obviously there's, some levels of severity that, like, gosh, we need bupe. I get it. I've worked with plenty of them, but when we insert bupe, we need it to be with the initial plan of immediately starting that wean and taper by implementing proper diet, proper nutrition for that person, proper supplementation, and the right fitness. I get really, really, really worried when I see people taking their clients out that are in their first 30 days of sobriety. They're going jumping out of airplanes. They're doing all of these things, doing yoga, and which you would think would be safe, not always, right? No. Like where's the blood tests that like clear them from a central nervous system aspect, from a organ function aspect. Like we can't just dive right into physical fitness. I'm gonna get sober and I'm gonna get fit and I'm gonna go be in the gym. Like that's not healthy.
No, because you get addicted to fitness, and that's just one aspect of it. And then to do things like that so we are actually running out of time. So no, but I'm super glad that we got to touch upon psychonutrition. With 2 minutes to go, what's one thing you want to leave our audience with that they can implement effective immediately to start to take better care of themselves?
Find and engage in advanced emotional intelligence. Doesn't have to be me. Find it. Like true emotional intelligence, because it is probably the biggest gap. People think they do. They think they have it, but we don't. It's not an innate skill, and it's certainly not taught in school. And most of our parents, depending on our age, right, they didn't know it either. I know I didn't know it. I didn't teach it to my kids, but it's truly important, and it's a big topic So if it's not broken down into a lot of different categories, it might be shallow. So find a way to really teach yourself and operate from a place of true advanced emotional intelligence.
Yeah, and for the audience, I did have an opportunity to speak to Tricia offline, and she continues to do the work. She has her own journey into recovery, and that's a gift. And where I talk extensively about, I love seeing people on this panel who have been through the suffering, have been through the wars, to really not only get out of that suffering, break the addiction, but also then learn and acquire the information so that they can then support others in breaking free from addiction. So I'm so honored to have been able to share this space with you, Tricia. Your gift, seriously.
It was truly a blessing to be here this morning. What a great way to kick off my day.
Awesome. Have a wonderful day.